Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV WORLD. In today's show, we will be looking at two important topics with regards to Pakistan and its position in the international community. Of course, we know that the new government, the new Prime Minister has of course been elected now, and we see more changes coming in with regards to the challenges that confront the nation. There are many that we have looked at, but our major concerns center around the economic front and of course the foreign policy situation of the country. Two major concerns of Pakistan. We've seen that a number of measures have been announced by the Prime Minister, including relief packages, which include lowering of prices in Ramzan, lowering of wheat prices, also with regards to salaries and pensions. But we also know that the economic situation, of course, requires bigger reforms. And the Prime Minister had earlier also called for the Charter of Economy to be established in this regard. What will the new government be doing with that matter? We will discuss in further detail. We also know that the Prime Minister has directed for the formation of a National Economic Advisory Council. He had called in a meeting of economic experts earlier and spoken with them with regards to short-term and long-term measures that are required for the economy of the country. What those may be and how we're going to see the new government take direction is what we're going to be discussing in our show today. We will also be taking a look at the situation in the region as well with regards to the foreign policy concerns that Pakistan has. Of course, the United States is a big concern, a major important ally, of course, and with regards to our relations with the US, it's how we're going to be proceeding forward while at the same time following a proactive and independent foreign policy. We'll also be taking a look at the region as well, because this is of course where Pakistan has played an important role with regards to Afghanistan as well, and previously has also followed a policy of interacting with its neighbors, including India as well. The issue of Kashmir still remains at large. And the Prime Minister also spoke about how the support of Pakistan will still be extended to Kashmir, but will still want to be able to engage with India. On what conditions will that be and how we're going to proceed forward with regards to that is also something that will come under discussion in the show today, as well as the situation in India, which is becoming increasingly difficult for the Muslims and other minorities in India as well. We know that there has been a lot of communal hate and riots in Karnataka state after the hijab controversy, and then we also know that in the recent Hindu festival of Ram Navata, we understand that this was also something that was witnessed where lots of mobs have rampaged neighborhoods, leaving at least one person dead, many injured, and mosques and shrines desecrated. What needs to be done with regards to that? We're also going to be talking in our show today. For this and more, I've been joined as usual by Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal in the studios. And we've also been joined by our guests online. We've been joined by Ahmed Jawad, leader PMLN, and we've been joined by Ali Rashid, leader PPP. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us today. I'll start with you, Mr. Ahmed. When we talk about the new situation, of course, the economic challenge is the one which is the biggest one looming, and we understand that this is something that perhaps the new government would be keen to eagerly look at and very quickly sort of be able to tackle. And we've seen measures with regards to that as well, which prove this case in point, because there has been a meeting called very soon, and a lot of measures announced as well. With regards to what sort of direction the new economy is going to take, specifically with regards to the Charter of Economy, how soon are we expecting a change and what sort of strategies will be employed?
Thank you, Sana. First of all, making a comeback for me at Pakistan television. I know that the last time when I appeared on the Pakistan television, I was representing Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, and when I revolted and I asked questions like somebody asked from Hazrat Umar, and when I tried to follow that tradition, and I also asked questions from the then Prime Minister Imran Khan, so I was given a show cause. And interestingly, Pakistan television is very quick to follow the impact of the show cause before anybody else. So I was also banned on Pakistan television for the last 3 months. So
we're also very quick to have you back on the show, sir.
So I can see many familiar faces, and I love all of them. And I missed Pakistan television, and hope to enjoy with your company and with the team of Pakistan television, because the government has changed now, and hopefully we'll continue to interact with our audience through your forum.
Right.
Regarding the economy, Sana, it's the question which you have asked. Perhaps it is such a complex and difficult question at this stage, when Pakistan Muslim League and along with the allied parties, they have taken over the government from an economics status which is not so good. We have multiple challenges. We have energy issues. We have expensive energy issues. We have dollar price issue. We have stock exchange issues. We have foreign reserves issues. So it is not an easy question to answer. But I would, based on my experience, I would like to answer as briefly as possible. I think, first of all, Sana, you would agree with me that economy has a lot to do with the credibility of the government and the leadership. It is just like a brand, a business product or a business brand. Its credibility paves the way of its success. Similarly, economy of a country, the first step is the credibility of the government and the leadership. And I think even a few days before Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif took over as Prime Minister, stock exchange started going up, dollar started going down. So this was the result of the credibility. Then we see how the world is responding, because that has also to do a lot with the economy. That how the global leadership, your regional partners are looking at you. So that was also positive. So I think the first step of credibility has been taken, and we have seen the result. But now onwards, I think a lot depends that how do we encourage our business, our industry, and how do we increase our exports, because that is the fundamental factor. We can have dollars if we have more exports, and for exports you have to encourage, you promote your local industry. What are their problems? We have to see
Right.
that. And the price of energy, which is the second most fundamental factor in the progress of a country. We have a very
Right.
expensive energy. We are facing a
That's a good
circular
point.
debt, highest
Right.
circular debt. How to
Right.
control that? So I think there
Ahmed
are
Jawad
many
sahab,
questions which we have to answer.
Ahmed Jawad sahab, first of all, welcome back. Earlier you were talking about revolting. So that while you were going on about it, I saw that Ali Rashid was really giving a big smile. So that must also be noted. But regarding what we are discussing today, one aspect that perhaps you have the best vantage point to actually explain is data integrity. Today, I don't know whether you have followed Mr. Ismail's presentation, his press talk. He particularly talked about fiscal deficit. And he said that the previous government was saying that we are going to have a fiscal deficit of around 4,000 billion. But it is hovering around 5,600 billion. And if you add certain liabilities and expenses, it reaches 6,400 billion. How do you establish in coming days the integrity of your data today?
Farrukh, if you can explain a little bit more, what do you mean by data integrity?
Sir, whatever numbers are being given at this moment, it is important for everybody, every
Yes.
stakeholder to actually trust them.
Yes.
The
Yes.
numbers, if they were being
Farrukh,
hidden
yeah,
in the
I
past,
got
we
it.
have to actually ensure that today's
Yes.
numbers are correct.
Yes. Farrukh, I think as far as economy of a country is concerned, I think the most reliable source of information for the statistics should be coming from the State Bank of Pakistan, and it should be transparent by any government, whether previous and now, because till the time we do not recognize that what is the actual situation, we cannot befool the people by giving statistics which have been given in the past. We have to bring the statistics in front of the public. We have to tell them what is the actual situation today. So I'm quite hopeful that you mentioned about this presentation given by Mr. Miftah Ismail. I have not seen that, But I'm sure Miftah Ismail is a very competent person. He has been the finance minister before 2018. So he would know that what is the importance of, data integrity and why we need to know the exact situation of the economy. And I'm sure in the coming days, you would come to know. For example, there has been so many interpretation about the foreign debts or domestic debts. If you listen to PTI, it looks like that there are no debts which PTI has taken. But if you listen to the opposition, it is a totally opposite situation. Now today, since I'm in the government, previously I was in the opposition. But today, if you ask me, yes, to my best information, today Pakistan in 71 years had almost 29 trillion loans, and
All
in
right.
just three
Let,
and a half
Maqbool,
years.
we'll come back. We'll come back to the economy, and I want to talk more about that as well. But let me go to Ali Rashid Saab, and I want to Faisal. We'll just come back to that as well. With regards to, of course, there have been a lot of claims in the media of whether or not we're going to be seeing Bilawal Bhutto Zardari as the new foreign minister. There have been debates with regards to whether or not the PPP has finalized his name in this regard. If you could clarify that, and also share the concerns whether or not they're justified with regards to whether Bilawal Bhutto should be a part of the cabinet under the PMLN's leadership. Is that going to affect his popularity in any way for him to be the foreign minister when he's leading the second largest party of the country?
And Ali Rashid, I had the similar question, so I'll put in as well. First of all, welcome back again. And you have been very regular with the PTV, and welcome you again. I just wanted to ask the similar question. Earlier, obviously, Jawad Sabi talked about the credibility. So when it comes to credibility, of course, we have doubled the credibility in this current government with the inclusion of People's Party, and especially Bilawal Bhutto as foreign minister of Pakistan. Would we be seeing the current government going for settling the FATF scores, plus when it comes to credibility, of course, showing the credibility of Pakistan to different countries, especially Middle Eastern countries, then China, and then US. Obviously, it is very important. So do you think that, Bilawal Bhutto, he will be playing a key role when it comes to the Western countries?
Thank you so much for having me here today. And the thing is, it is being discussed within the party if Chairman Bilawal will be taking this position or not. In my personal opinion, obviously he's the best person who can play a very key role in going and pleading Pakistan's case in front of the international community. But that being said, we do also have it's a catch-22 situation for us, because it does, it is something which we need to think about, that our party leader, who's the chairman of a party, should he be working in the cabinet under another political party who we always contest elections against. But that being said, I feel that it is definitely being considered that although we would like to see him as the prime minister, but we do understand that maybe the need of the hour would be that he may take the foreign ministry and play a very key role, because I don't think anybody else would be better suited for this role to get Pakistan out of the kind of international crisis which Mr. Khan had pushed Pakistan towards. Because according to Mr. Khan, independent Pakistan just meant isolation from the world, which is exactly the opposite. I feel having very good relations with the international community, especially countries which are allies, is very important. And I think Chairman Bilawal is much more mature and vocal about these kind of things. And I think he would make a very good foreign minister. But again, that decision is for the party to decide, and it's being discussed. And I'll let you know as soon as we come to a final conclusion in regard to that.
Right, and Rashid sir, with reference to us developing our relationship with different countries, of course, the United States is an important country, as you mentioned yourself, and this is something that would probably be of utmost importance whenever we have a new foreign minister, for him to be engaging with the US once again, specifically considering the events of the past week or so with regards to how the United States name has been taken associated with a foreign conspiracy as well. What will be the strategy of the new foreign ministry to take that forward?
I believe it will be friendship with all, let it be the US, let it be any Western country or any other country, but at the same level. When you talk about friendship, and friendship, we are equals, and when we're equals, we are allies, and when you're allies, then we treat each other like that. So I don't believe that just because you're having good relations with a country, it makes you subservient to them or you're lower than them. And as far as the conspiracy is concerned, we've formed a commission, and that will be investigated. But in my personal opinion, I don't think there's anything to that. It was just a story which apparently it's been declassified according to the previous speaker before he said that before resigning. But if it has been declassified, then it should have been with you by now, and the letter should have been, the cable should have been with me, with you, with everybody else to see. But that's not the case. And also the security establishment, the military establishment, has categorically, had there been something like that, they would have come forward and definitely, told the parliament and told the relevant people that there is this kind of security threat where foreign power is is conspiring against Pakistan.
And a pledge is already made. A pledge is made for investigation further. But
yes.
With your permission, Sana, allow me to go back to Ahmed Jawad Sahab. Ahmed Jawad Sahab, this narrative of PTI that somehow if your government actually, this government has come, that means there is some kind of collaboration, and that's why you will be rewarded. How do you ensure that whatever economic efforts you put in and whatever rewards that you get will not be seen in that view?
Farrukh, today I was reading a newspaper which was just explaining that how much funds and grants Pakistan got in last 1 year by the PTI government, and it was to the tune of 134 billion rupees. So in last 1 year, PTI government got 134 billion rupees. This is the aid, or it is the grant. On the other hand, PTI government is blaming the opposition that they have collaborated with the foreign forces, and the $1 billion, by spending $1 billion, the entire country has been purchased. I mean, this is the narrative of the opposition. So I think the big question should be that how much opposition has been given in last 1 year by the American government. It is always the government.
Today's opposition. Today's opposition, right?
Yes, exactly. Today's opposition. Yes, yeah. You're right. So they got.
You were using it interchangeably. That's why.
You would understand. I'm in the most complex situation because by December 2021, I was opposition. By 10 January 2022, I was in government. Previously, I was in government and then opposition. Then again in the opposition, and now again in the government. So you have to forgive my slip of tongue.
In government, you and I sparred very regularly.
Yeah. So okay. I have 4 changes of status since December 2021, from government to opposition, opposition to government, government to opposition. So I will take some time to understand where I am standing today. But anyway, coming back to your your question, that the foreign collaboration, we have to understand that every government has to collaborate with the USA, has to collaborate with China, has to collaborate with European Union, has to collaborate with IMF, World Bank, with everybody. So the only important thing is that how do you really negotiate your terms? If I recall the rule of Nawaz Sharif from 2013 to 18. I think from 2013 to 2016, when Mr. Ishaq Khan was the finance minister, and I had the personal experience to listen to him, that how did he manage the rupee, stable rupee against the dollar for almost 4 years. And it was always the strength of your negotiation, that how do you negotiate with the foreign institutions. I think this was the key to success in that era. And today also, we have to go back to same negotiation, which can help Pakistan. And I'm sure whosoever is the foreign minister now, the government of Pakistan under Shahbaz Sharif will be able to tackle the financial issues better than in last few years.
And that is a very good point, Sana. I just wanted to mention here regarding Russia. I mean, we don't know what exactly was agreed upon between the former Prime Minister and President Putin, because we didn't see any fine print of that. But regarding independent foreign policy, there's one test, and that will clear the air very quickly, and that is CPEC. If CPEC is going to pick up pace, then that means that the foreign policy remains independent.
Right, absolutely. And I wanted to also comment on what Ahmed Saab was saying with reference to Ms. Agda's policies. I don't know if in the long run they're actually going to be beneficial for the country or not, and whether or not the same policies will then again be employed by the PMLN. But I'll come back to that. Mr. Ali, I also want to talk about the stance that has been put forward by the Prime Minister, saying that there is going to be consensus and there is going to be consultation on all matters, all stakeholders will be taken together. And he also emphasized on putting forward a united front. And I understand that's important, but considering the numbers at the moment and the fact that there are lots of parties involved, and of course there are issues that still remain, moving forward, how will the new government be able to balance that and go through consultation and consensus on the difficult matters confronting the country?
I think it's not rocket science. I think there are very core issues which we are faced with, inflation being one of them, debt being one of them, GDP growth being another. I think we just need to, have focus on the core issues. And I think when we get experts from all the political parties who are experts in the economy and finance, and when they all put their heads together, I'm sure the solution will not be difficult to come to, because I think identifying the problem is 50% of the, you get your answer there of the solution. So I think it won't be that difficult. And the good thing is the current Prime Minister is getting everybody on board. And all the stakeholders, the business community is on the same page, industrialists are on the same page, a lot of economists, they're on the same page. Because previously in the PTI tenure and regime, nobody was consulted. There were decisions. One ministry would not know what the other ministry is doing, and it was very confusing. And the entire government was being run on a very ad hoc basis. But it's very positive, and you can actually see the way the stock market rose in a single day. Historically, never has the stock market gone up 1,700-1,800 points in a single day. That's cool. And majority of the buyers were individual buyers. They weren't institutions, so you can't even say that it was manipulated by the government, that they got the government institutions to do some buying. These are all individual buyers and investors. This goes to show the kind of confidence the people have in the new setup and these parties. And the upward trend of the stock exchange and the dollar going down started from the verdict of the Supreme Court, and which has continued till today. And so I see better times, and I'm very happy that Pakistan's now going in the right direction, and it's in very able hands, people who can actually handle these crises.
Yeah. Ahmed Saab, I just want to come towards you. You being a politician and obviously, very close to PTI, you used to be. What do you think that the all of these resignation which were given in the Parliament, would that affect the pace of the current government, the coming government, in terms of delivery?
No, I don't think so, because that is a phenomena within the Parliament, and that is the existence of an opposition. For the good of democracy, there should always be a opposition. There should always be a strong opposition. We would always recommend, and we would always, as a citizen, we would say that there should be an opposition. But if the opposition has run away from the parliament, it should not affect the delivery and performance of the government. In my view, it should not be a repetition of the episode which we saw during the 2015 Dharna, when the resignations were kept, like a treasure in some drawer for 6 months, and they were not accepted. And then they were ready to come back, and they were even, when they came back, they were ready to take the claims of the 6 month salaries which they had missed. So I just hope that this time these should be genuine resignations. And according to the constitution, if they resign, there should be by-elections in the country, and all political parties should be allowed to contest the by-elections, and perhaps there would be a better representation of the people of Pakistan in the parliament. And this process should continue to run in parallel, and it should have should not have any effect. And I think the question which you have asked, it is very well demonstrated by the new Prime Minister that the first day he was in the Prime Minister house at 8 o'clock, and the first day he said there will be 6 working days, not 5 working days. And he also said that not to start the day at 10 o'clock, we are all going to start. And we know the reputation of Mr. Shahbaz Sharif when he was in Punjab, and it was very difficult for the bureaucrats to sleep at night, because he would call 2 o'clock, he would call 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, if there is something official, there is something pressing. So he is a kind of administrator. You cannot think that he will take his focus away from his
we have 5 days. Allow me to, that notification has been released already. But Ahmed Jawad Sahab, I'm sorry to actually put you again in uncomfortable position, but Ali Rashid Sahab actually said something very interesting. He said that the first task should be to actually win over all, including the former Prime Minister. Do you think that that is a doable or possible task, sir? Because at this moment, national consensus seems to be the need of the hour.
Farrukh, I might have missed what Rashid said. Can you just repeat?
I repeated it, but I will repeat it once again. He said that
Thank you.
You need to bring everybody on board, right? Including the former Prime Minister. So is that a doable task in this climate?
Farrukh, the question it's a right question, and I think the best person who has, we have been ridiculing in the past, Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, who is always talking about political harmony, who is always talking about coexistence. And I think politics is about coexistence. Politics is about everybody on board. And everybody on board does not mean that we have to agree with each other. We can always agree to disagree. And I would expect that if PTI can show some sportsman spirit under the leadership of a sportsman who used to be a good sportsman, demonstrating sportsman spirit when he was in the fields of cricket. But ever since he is in the parliament, his sportsman spirit is always the missing part of his personality.
All right, Ahmed Sahab, we're almost out of time for this segment. I just want to quickly ask Mr. Ali one quick question before we end the segment over here. With reference to the regional situation, of course, Afghanistan is a key factor, and we'll be talking about India at length in our second segment as well. But when we talk about Afghanistan, Imran Khan's leadership did enjoy a specific relationship with the Taliban regime, and perhaps that helped in us advocating the stance in the international community as well. How will the new leadership be taking their stance with the Taliban regime and be able to bring up this issue for not just peace or the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, but also the resultant peace and security in our country?
Well, I feel when it comes to Afghanistan, I think we'll sit with all the regional stakeholders, including Bangladesh, China, India, and all the people in the region. I think we need to sit together and put our heads together to come to consensus of how to go about it, because I think any kind of backlash or any kind of event which goes on in Afghanistan will obviously affect not just Pakistan, but India, Bangladesh, China, except Iran, the entire region. So I think whatever we'll do will be in consensus, and our relationship with Afghanistan was not primarily based because of the PTI government. I think we had our ties with the government prior to that even, and I think that will be smooth sailing in that regard when it comes to
all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ali Rashid and Mr. Ahmed Jawad, for joining us and being a part of the debate. When we talk about the regional situation, of course, an important aspect of the regional peace and security is our relationship in India as well, something that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif also spoke about with reference to the issue of Kashmir, and said we will be extending our support to Kashmir and we want to be able to engage in dialogue as well. And he also reiterated that both the countries actually do have similar problems with regards to poverty and unemployment, and perhaps that should be the focus of our attention as well. At the same time, we understand that the people in India, specifically Muslims, have been suffering and have been increasingly suffering in terms of religious discrimination and violence that is now rampant in India. Faisal, when we look at the situation with regards to the festival that happened in India as well, there were lots of mobs that rampaged neighborhoods. We've seen people who've lost their lives as well. We've also seen that lots of mosques and shrines was also desecrated, and this, of course, is such a difficult situation, and it's going to present another challenge for the new government to be able to take this up as well. And we'll talk more about that as well. Let me also welcome in the show Mr. Qamar Cheema, who's a foreign affairs expert. He's joined us online. Thank you very much, Mr. Qamar Cheema, for joining us and being a part of the show. When we look at the situation in India and the human rights violations that exist, not only in Kashmir but throughout India against Muslims, it presents an even more difficult challenge for us to be able to engage with India on any matter. When we talk about Kashmir, of course, Article 370 and 35A also pose a serious challenge of whether or not we can actually engage in dialogue. Will the new government be able to bypass the reversal of these articles and engage in dialogue concerning Kashmir? Mr. Cheema?
Perhaps
I don't think he's able to hear me. Faisal, when we look at the situation in terms of the engagement with India, this of course is an important aspect and has been for the past 3 years or so. And we've seen that the new Prime Minister has spoken about dialogue, and we've always been, in fact, ready for dialogue with India. But this is an important issue as well, and has been as a prerequisite to dialogue. Do you expect this to be changing anytime soon?
Yeah, but Sana, I believe so, because first of all, as soon as Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif he became Prime Minister, obviously we had a positive message from Prime Minister Modi of India, and he welcomed him, and he sort of given the positive indications. And if we look at Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, of course he highlighted it as well, that he will be willing to talk to India about obviously Kashmir as well, and certain other issues which are being faced by both of the countries. So to me, I think we can find some kind of positive developments in that. We know that the previous Prime Minister Imran Khan, he categorically said that talks with India will not be initiated unless India goes back to their position, obviously related to 370 and 35A articles, the abrogation of it. So now I think it would be a little different from that, but obviously we have other issues which we are concerned as well, and the whole Muslim world is concerned about as well, that in today's India, of course, Islamophobia is at its peak,
But that brings us to a far more difficult concept in terms of the government to be able to understand that this is something that's happening. Of course, when we associate the state with what is going on, then it's going to be difficult for us to be able to talk to them. Farrukh, this is going to be an important aspect also if we ever do engage in negotiations, because there are so many ways that the Indian state and the government is actually looking at the situation. They perhaps will not be talking in terms of them being involved in such acts of human rights violations or discrimination. And then there are people at large or mobs that have committed such actions. How are we going to be able to take that issue forward?
Right, and that is a very good point. And let me also, with your permission, actually disagree with what Faisal was saying earlier.
Sure.
Although I do agree with most of the spirit of what he said, but I have to correct certain records. First, the initiative didn't come from Indian Prime Minister Modi. It came from Prime Minister of Pakistan when he actually was delivering his first speech in the parliament. And there he actually said that both countries, especially once we resolve Kashmir, we can actually, look at our own people and their upkeep and how to improve their lives, right? And that was a very good message. It reminded me of the previous Prime Minister's message as well, which was more or less the same. Then, of course, the previous government saw something that didn't happen under the current leadership, and that was abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. And the reaction of former Prime Minister was one of the reasons through which actually he earned my respect, a lot of respect, right? But there's another thing. Usually what happens, during his time, there was one agreement also. We saw there were some negotiations that resulted in LOC situation and calm on LOC, because that had ruined the lives of the very Kashmiris we were talking about, especially our Kashmiris on our side of the LOC, right? So the talks have to continue. They usually continue despite grandstanding or positioning of leaders of two sides.
Right.
And secondly, you have to remember that nobody can compromise their position on Kashmir in Pakistan. So whatever is going to happen will happen while focusing on Kashmir. Let us hope in coming days we see some kind of dialogue or some kind of progress, because frankly, the more you delay any kind of breakthrough between the two countries, it affects the Indian people, right? And the frustration for someone like me who is a peacenik is that repeatedly we keep on talking about the need for peace because our economic indicators are bad and Indians have gone down as well. So the need is eventually to resolve Kashmir and do something for the Kashmiris and then for our own people. It has been quite a painful experience.
Right.
Unfortunately,
absolutely.
that didn't happen. Let us hope there is some breakthrough.
Right. Let me also once again welcome Mr. Qamar Cheema, who's a foreign affairs expert. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Cheema Sahab, when we look at the situation with reference to India and particularly Kashmir, there has been this prerequisite that before the reversal of 370 and 35A, there will not be any negotiations. When we look at the new government and the Prime Minister, of course, again extending the option of negotiation and dialogue with India, which seems to be the only way forward, do you think that this is something that can actually be put on hold and while negotiations happen? And should that even be something that we should be going for? Should we actually not go for the reversal of Article 370 and 35A prior to negotiating with India?
Well, I think this is a very important question, and since this is a fresh government and we got a message from the Prime Minister Modi for Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and I think any precondition coming from India must not be welcomed. And but at the same time, I think what I believe is the environment in India does not seem fit for the talks. So Pakistan shall appeal to the international community. Pakistan should tell the international community for that we are concerned for the talks, but at the same time, they should not be preconditioned, I believe, from either side.
Wasn't this precondition from our side?
Well, I think the precondition, if we will have a precondition, we will not be able to reach the table. So all what we need is we need to reach the table. And I think obviously the first thing we need to resolve is not the Kashmir. There are so many other bilateral issues which needs to be resolved. And I think if we will reach the table, the momentum is built, a good atmosphere we get on for the talks, then I think the able leadership from both the countries, they can make a way. But just at the moment, these 3.5 years, almost 4 years, they have been almost wasted and things didn't improve. I think the military diplomacy was working, which the earlier panelists mentioned, and the 2003 ceasefire agreement is still at that place. All what we need is the government of Mr. Shehbaz Sharif can offer something good to India, and in return, the Indian authorities need to offer something to Pakistan if they really are interested for the peace. But I'm really skeptical looking at the behavior of Prime Minister Modi, his jingoism, the way he have propagated war, and the way they believe that their confidence is rising because of the dependence of the international system on India, particularly in the region of Indo-Pacific, and this continuous 2+2 dialogue with the Americans, with the Japanese, with the Australians, and with the global engagement is making them that they are indispensable. But I think the most important thing is that the regional arrangements need to be promoted, and for that cause, I think if the Prime Minister Modi shows magnanimity and shows leadership, there is a way forward.
All right. Yes,
just to actually correct that record once again, while there was military diplomacy between the two countries, there's another element that we are forgetting. There was also trade talks between the two countries. If you remember, there was this matter of importing wheat from India, which was eventually reversed. And the problem during the previous government was that there was perhaps a lack of internal dialogue. So that was also why we had many reversals, right? At this moment, it seems that we might have more clarity on these issues. And while jaw can continue, talk will also have to resume as well.
Absolutely. Cheema Saab, another important aspect is, of course, when we look at the situation within India as well, with how Muslims have been treated, how we've seen an increase in communal rights, and so much seeping in of the Hindutva ideology within the public ranks, and then, of course, mobs actually carrying out lynchings or even rampaging in different neighborhoods and desecrating mosques and shrines. And this is, of course, something that has been increasingly going on in India for a while now. And while we understand that there is so much that is going at the top institutions as well, with the top authorities perhaps also being involved, when we look at us talking to India and talking to them on a level where we want to be able to negotiate various important issues at the table, how are we going to be able to reconcile what is going on within India and the way that the minds of the top political authorities in India work and come to a solution which is sane and which is good for the Muslims in India and elsewhere?
Well, I think in last 7-8 years since Prime Minister Modi is in office since 2014, there is an area of there is a hostility in India, and that is deliberately, which is manufactured obviously in India through media, through right-wing forums by the Indian authorities, and I think that will continue. But remember one thing. Just right now, there is a 2+2 dialogue going on between India and the US. And the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken just asked the Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar that we are really concerned about the abuse of the human rights violations in India. And they just mentioned it just yesterday. So the point is that you need to talk, you need to engage, you need to disagree, you need to keep telling, you need to pressurize the other country. I think that will work only if you are on table and if there is something. I think the Indians, if you just look at the Indian mindset, you will find that they believe that why shall we talk with Pakistan? Because right now, if we will talk, we will mainstream them. We will give them global recognition because after fighting this war against terrorism, they want to improve their image. They want to get a global access. They want to get access to the global economies. So I think they have a deliberate plan not to let Pakistan mainstream. I think the job of Pakistani authorities should be, we are mainstream in the region. We need to criticize them. We need to give them tough time, but we need to sit on the table. And for that, an environment must be created. A talk must. So we have to give some space on that. Otherwise, if we will keep bashing, that won't work. All what we need is, for example, when 2003 ceasefire agreement was there, neither Indian media nor Pakistani media criticized because we knew that this is coming and this will bring some important results.
Absolutely, Cheema Saab. That's a valid point. Thank you very much for joining us. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you very much for being a part of the show and talking to us about what needs to be done with regards to us improving our relationships with India and other regional partners as well. Because, of course, when we look at the new challenges that are still there for the new government, of course, Pakistan has a lot going on the domestic front as well. with regards to the economy. And then, of course, our foreign policy and our relations with our countries and specifically our neighbors is going to be important for our future as well. And we hope to be able to establish good relations with the neighborhood and in the region as well. That's all from the debate. We'll see you tomorrow.